Welcome to Classified Reality, where I investigate and analyze all things UFO. My name is Josh Golombeski, and I am a MUFON field investigator, UFO filmmaker, and podcaster. My obsession with the phenomenon was inspired by my family's generational contact with non-human intelligence. Welcome to Classified Reality. I'm your host, Josh. Tonight, we're going to talk about the New Jersey drones. Do we finally have an answer? The White House came forward with a statement saying they were authorized by the FAA for research, among various other reasons, including hobbyists. I'm not buying it at all, folks, and I want to take you through why that is. There's so much more going on with these drones than most people realize, and I've been tracking it obsessively close for months. So let's dive in, okay? Here's, first, before we get started, I want to play the clip from President Trump once he went into office, asking his team to give an answer to the public about the drones, and then the clip from the new press secretary giving her answer what the drones are.
At some point, will you use your powers of the presidency to tell Americans who are concerned about drones?
Yeah, oh, good.
Ago,
Yeah.
what exactly
I will.
Can you tell us now?
In fact, I'd like to know because I just got here.
What do you think?
I just came here. I've been here for what, 15 minutes now.
But is it anything of these drones? Is it anything that people need to be worried
No,
about?
I think it's terrible. I would like to find out what it is and tell the people.
And can you commit to some kind of...
In fact, I'd like to do that. Could we find out what that was, Susie? Okay? Yeah, why don't we find out? Immediately. I mean, I can't imagine it's an enemy or there would have been, people would have gotten blown up all over. Maybe they were testing things. I don't know why they wouldn't have said what it was. They had a lot of them flying over Bedminster, which is interesting. Right?
An update on the New Jersey drones. After research and study, the drones that were flying over New Jersey in large numbers were authorized to be flown by the FAA for research and various other reasons. Many of these drones were also hobbyists, recreational, and private individuals that enjoy flying drones. In time, it got worse due to curiosity. This was not the enemy.
Okay, if you go watch that entire press briefing, no one follows up. They don't say anything. They literally just move on to tariffs, and no one even talks about the drones, which is really important to me. I know tariffs are important, but the drones are really important to Josh and you if you're listening. So why not the FAA? Let's just start with previous statements by the DOD. Now, the FAA is not the DOD, I know, but here are two clips where the Pentagon makes statements that they're not military, they're not DOD assets. Here you go.
Sabrina, can you tell me what the Pentagon is doing to address this issue of drone sightings over New Jersey? It's near sensitive installations. The FBI is involved. What is the Pentagon doing?
Sure. So at this time, aware of those drone sightings that have been reported, at this time we have no evidence that these activities are coming from a foreign entity or the work of an adversary. We're going to continue to monitor what is happening, but at no point were our installations threatened when this activity was occurring. These are not U.S. military drones. Again, this is being investigated by local law enforcement. What our initial assessment here is that these are not drones or activities coming from a foreign entity or adversary.
So back to the drones. Can you unequivocally say that none of the drones that are being spotted are DOD assets or something that's being tested within the Defense Department? Are all of these either civilian or otherwise, but just not Department of Defense drones?
You're talking about the drones in New Jersey up and down the... Yes, they are not DOD assets.
None of them are?
To my knowledge, none of them are.
Okay, and are there any sort of experimental programs going on where maybe drones are being tested that...
To my knowledge, no.
Okay. What about the ones that are flying over military bases at this point? Have there been any possibilities of collecting what sort of information these drones are doing or anything like that?
In the case of drones flying near or over U.S. military installations, that in and of itself, just given the volume of drone flights we see on a given day, is not something that's new. We take all of those seriously. We will typically, when we detect them, attempt to classify them and take appropriate measures. Is it possible that some of those are surveilling? Absolutely. But can you make that assumption in every case? Not necessarily. So in each case, commanders have the authority, installation commanders and authorities have the authority to respond appropriately, and will continue to do that.
Okay, again, the FAA is not the DOD, but do you think the FAA is going to just launched a giant research program all over the country. And by the way, this started in the UK weeks before it hit Jersey. So the FAA is launching a large-scale research program over the UK, over Jersey, New York, the entire eastern seaboard. Oh wait, actually, it's been seen everywhere. Almost every state now has reports of these drones. My own family witnessed it in Boulder, Colorado. Like, they're everywhere. So the FAA apparently just has a billion of these drones, and they're just all over the world, and they're just doing research. It doesn't make sense, okay? This is where we're gonna get to the more weird stuff. So just to list a couple things that I'm gonna get deeper into. One, these drones do not have a heat signature, which is super UFO-y. Some of the more famous declassified UFO videos are all FLIR footage where you watch an object that looks cold fly through the sky. So apparently these drones don't. Okay, that's weird. The batteries last forever. I mean, for a long time. These things are reported to be in the air for like 8 hours, all night, 6 hours. That is unusual, or just very advanced batteries, which is awesome. And as I said before, they're appearing worldwide. They're also silent, by the way, which is weird, right? Like drones make a noise. A lot of these, some do make noise, which is interesting. In the beginning, there seem to be two types. There are some that make a lot of noise, and there are other ones that seem to make no noise, which is super UFO-y. So they're a drone, but they're not a quadcopter, by the way. That's why I want to pull out. Like, I think most people, when they think drone, they think quadcopter, like propellers, but that's only some of the things that we're seeing. We're talking about like basically a small airplane that doesn't make noise and doesn't have propellers. It's super bizarre, but it could be just human tech. Okay, so what about Denmark? I mean, these things were seen all over Denmark as well. So we're just over in Denmark flying drones, but it gets weirder. Like 4 years ago or 5 years ago in 2019 in Colorado, in the northeast part of the state and the connecting states, the same thing we're seeing today was seen for months. Here's a clip.
Now to this story, the FBI, FAA, and U.S. Air Force are investigating a mystery in the skies over Colorado and Nebraska, where swarms of drones have been spotted, sometimes in formation. But who's flying them? Janet Shamlian with new clues tonight.
That's not a plane.
For the last week, Michelle Eckhoff has spotted a high-flying nighttime mystery above her rural northern Colorado home. Drones, sometimes a dozen or more with wingspans 6 feet wide.
The sky is lit up with Christmas lights, basically. There's lights and things flying all over.
Sheriff's departments across the border area of 3 states have been flooded with similar reports since mid-December.
I think whomever is responsible for it will probably have a little bit of answering to do to the general public.
The military and local companies have denied responsibility.
There's one hovering over here.
We waited with Eckhoff until the sun went down and the skies lit up.
It's been dark for about a half hour, and we are seeing drones all over the sky. They appear as little twinkling lights. Sometimes there's just one, but in other cases, we've seen clusters of 6 or more.
Tonight, there are still more questions than answers, and residents are feeling vulnerable.
It feels like an invasion of privacy almost.
What about in December 2023 over Langley Air Force Base in Virginia, the drones were seen, and it caused them to temporarily shut down their airspace. So the FAA is just flying in and messing with military bases? That doesn't make sense. It's not even like they would never do that. And it wasn't like it wasn't like a joint experiment. Like the base got nervous and was like, shut down the airspace, and they tried to get it out of there, but they couldn't. That's the other thing. They can't. Anytime someone engages these things, they go dark and disappear. And I think early on in UK, they used anti-drone technology to try to knock it out of the sky, and it didn't work. So whatever the things are, they have super advanced capabilities. But even better, in December, Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, which is in Ohio, not Jersey. So again, the FAA was running tests everywhere. Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, and if you know anything about UFOs, you know that is the most lured base out there that is connected to so many different crash retrievals, and alien bodies are supposed to be there. There's a whole thing about Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. But in December, they shut down their airspace as well. Here's the audio.
Med Flight 8 Patterson Tower, use extreme caution for heavy UAS movement on the base. Security forces is handling the situation, and I gotta keep the lights down so that security forces can see.
Ohio, now the latest of several states to report drone concerns as scrutiny over the federal response is building. This morning, lawmakers are demanding government officials do more and explain more after weeks of suspicious sightings.
Okay, now, here's something fun. There was a bulletin released to all the fire stations in New Jersey from the New Jersey of Fire Safety in December. I'm not going to read there's a bullet list of about 8 things. If you're watching online, you can read them. I'm going to read the ones that I think are really interesting. Just start with 1. Downed or landed drones should not be approached. Okay. I mean, what's so dangerous about a drone? Notified law enforcement and the FBI. Okay, well, I guess that's normal. Number 5. request the New Jersey SP Hazardous Materials Response Unit and the local hazmat team. All right, maybe that's normal protocol for a downed aircraft. I don't know, it seems a little much. 6, hazardous materials response teams should approach the incident as an unknown and follow established environmental monitoring procedures as such, to include radiation monitoring. Okay, again, I guess you could explain that way as just something normal with aircrafts falling, but I don't think so. Number 7, request the nearest bomb squad. All right, seems like overkill at this point. 8, be aware that electronic devices and two-way radio systems may malfunction in the immediate area. Oh my God, could anything else scream UFO? We know that UFOs affect electrical equipment. That's, if you're in this space for 5 minutes, you read one book, you know that. That is really weird. Again, we could have that technology too. I'm just gonna point out some things that seem UFO-y, but I don't know. It also could be our advanced stuff. I love that bulletin. That's like one of my favorite things that came out. Okay, but even Bellevue, New Jersey Mayor Michael Melham thinks the White House's statements that the FAA was responsible is super fishy. Here's the clip.
The fact that they say, research, and other things. Well, what are those other things? Those are the questions that people have. We still have no answers.
The mayor of Belleville, New Jersey, disappointed in the latest attempt by the White House to explain the presence of the drones. At one point, the FAA even imposed a temporary ban.
The FAA 3 weeks ago was telling us when they did the ban that they have the authorization to shoot down and use deadly force. Nowhere did they say, oh, by the way, it might be us.
But it goes even deeper. I want to point out this interesting document that Tom DeLonge posted. And when he posts something, I take it seriously and I look a little deeper into it. And this document from the 60s suggests that these same things were seen in the 60s in Wyoming. So let me go through it a little bit quick. Like, he's one of those people where if he posts something, I'm paying attention because he's trying to tell us something. So in this document from the headquarters of the 90th Strategic Missile Wing, United States Air Force Base in Wyoming, there's reports to civilians and military of these objects for 3 days. They had green flashing lights. They had V-shaped, echelon, cross, box, and tail-shaped formations were reported. That's really weird. They had colored lights that were flashing on and off at 1 to 2 second intervals, which is similar to what we're seeing today. Some would alternatively go bright and dim, which we're seeing with the orb phenomenon, which we'll get to too. There's also orbs being seen in the same time the drones are being seen, which is fascinating. And over these 3 nights, the first night, 75 objects were seen, observed by 70 people. Second night, 29 objects observed by 27 people. Third night, 44 objects observed by 46 people, totaling 148 objects and 143 people. That is similar to the quantity of sightings were happening today. So green flashing lights, tail-shaped formation, which is like these tail-shaped drones we're seeing today, and alternating lights, which is what we're seeing as well, like the FAA lights, basically. So somehow they had drones in the 60s. The FAA was running research in the 60s, and they're just still doing it today. I mean, it's so ridiculous. Okay, let's move on. I'm going to get into MUFON for a little bit, because I love the MUFON database. If you know me, I'm just such a nerd for it. There's so much amazing stuff in there, but I did a couple things. I pulled all UFO reports in Jersey from November 1st to February, and there was 27 cases. But just so you know, like, people are seeing drones, right? So they're not thinking UFO, so they're not reporting it necessarily. There's a couple for sure that I'm going to point out here over nationally. But most people are like, oh, it's not a UFO. But again, I'm teeing up something too, because there was a UFO uptick, or at least it seemed like there was an orb uptick. I can't really prove that empirically, but it seemed like there was an orb uptick, and it's connected to the drone phenomenon. And we'll get more to that in a second. But here's a couple cases I pulled. Here's a case I pulled from Tennessee that shows that this drone phenomenon was not just Jersey or the UK. It was everywhere. Okay, this is case 140444 in Springfield, Tennessee, January 3rd. Quote, me and my family saw multiple drones in a grid formation separated by about 5 minutes and slowly moving from west to east over the north side of Springfield, Tennessee. I notified the airport as we are close and confirmed no activity in flight radar. There were several, many very high, maybe 2,500 feet, and several combing over the north part of the city, about 50 to 100 feet up. Only noise was when one literally almost hit a tree in my backyard. Sorry if some of the photos aren't good. I can't see them while selecting. So this witness, a gentleman, uploaded photos that were, I wouldn't say they're any better or worse than anything you've seen online. Now let's transition to this orb thing I've been talking about. So lots of orbs were seen in Jersey as well and around the world, especially Chris Bledsoe down in the Carolinas, if you follow him at all. But here's an orb case that took place in the same area that the drones were being spotted in New Jersey. So I think this is an awesome case because it has video and other scientific data attached to it. And the video's good. And this is an orb in North Bergen, New Jersey on December 7th. This is when this incident took place in 2024. Case 139889. Quote, this is what the witness statement was. At roughly 8 o'clock, electronic equipment I have that is capable of detecting changes in gravitational, magnetic, and electromagnetic field shifts was triggered. I went out on my balcony located on the 23rd floor, which faces southwest, to see a very bright orb traveling in an ascending diagonal path of flight in an easterly direction. It was totally silent, and it did not have any navigational lights, neither a port red or starboard green, nor any flashing lights of any colors. It was just a bright orb. It passed other aircraft that were traveling in the southwest direction towards Newark International Airport. Its movement was slow and steady. A second identical object appeared less than a minute from the first one and displayed the same. I have video of both the object and the readings on the electronic detection equipment. Whew. That is an awesome case I wish I got because witness, video, other scientific data, and if you're into UFOs, you know they affect gravitational magnetic fields, so the fact this triggered it is super compelling. This is a great case, and this is like the diamond in the rough. MUFON is like normal. It's like 9 out of 10 cases are either like identified flying object, a hoax, or we just not information to really say anything, right? But then 1 out of 10 ends up being kind of exciting. This feels like, especially for like a nuts and bolts case, like I would wonder if this guy has any more sightings after that. If you're into the hitchhiker effect, you know about that. Okay, here's another story I just want to share because it involves something that I think might be going on. The waters are so muddied, right? We're seeing human drones. We're seeing potentially non-human intelligence drones, potentially, because, and I'll get to more of that in a second, into mimicry, and these drones could be potentially mimicking human aircraft, which is something that was reported throughout ufology and throughout history. UFOs turning into different objects for whatever reason, to be stealthy. I'll get to that more in a minute. And it could be our drones engaging real aircraft. There's also orbs being reported, like I just said. So it could be like us engaging the phenomenon with our advanced tech that we may have engineered from them. I don't know, but here's a great case that took place in 2018 in Colorado that has an extra wrinkle. It also involves hover bikes, which is awesome. This case is wild. If you have access to the database, look up case 121474. I think it's called the hover bike nightmare, and it is really cool. It's really bizarre. And folks, I've been in this a long time, and sometimes the more bizarre something is, the more likely it's true. I swear to God, the phenomenon is so absurd. It's so absurd how it manifests that you have to like roll with it or you'll miss it. Okay, here we go. So this gentleman in 2018 wanted to go stargazing. There was a meteor shower happening near Silver Plume, Colorado, which is in the middle of the Rocky Mountains. So he at night walked up into an area that was had a fire ban. He climbed up a mountain. He decided to make a fire anyways. So he made a fire and he saw some lights in the distance and he was like, uh-oh, the Rangers caught me. So he put out his fire. What happened next was the most bizarre thing of all time. He got followed by these lights. He thought they were following him. They ended up not being. They were kind of ignoring him. They knew he was there. And these lights got closer. He realized they were going really smooth and steady. They weren't like walking. And they started jumping over trees. So instead of like following the path, like and curving it, it would just jump over trees and land in the path again. As I got closer, he realized they were like hover bikes with these entities or people or non-human intelligence in these hazmat-like suits. Not a hazmat suit, but pure silver, riding advanced, futuristic-looking hover bikes. The reason why I believe in the story at all is because the witness testimony was crazy, and there's also multiple people from the same area the same night, not related, who saw similar things, which is crazy. So these hover bikes followed this gentleman. He fell down, well, not followed, they were like in the area. He thought they were following him. He tripped and fell down a mountain. One got really close, and they picked up dirt from the ground. They acknowledged him, but they didn't do anything. They just got back on the bike, put the dirt in their hover bike, and then flew off. So was it advanced human tech flying around testing? Was it NHI? I don't know. But he also saw human drones flying around, like flat out DJI small like drones whipping over the landscape. So what was that? Well, they're actually a little bigger than DJI. I kind of reported them being bigger. So that seemed human. So was it human engaging non-human intelligence? Was it all human? Like, was everything just this crazy program we're not aware of, or was there a mix of things? And I think this case is amazing because it just shows you things are confusing. Is part human? It's not. Is it mimicking us, or is it all? It's. I just love it because you can go so many different directions with this, and that's why I just want to be clear. Like, I don't know what's going on. I just want to point out all these amazing things, and you can kind of make your own decision on it. Okay, I want to transition now to all the things that made the drones seem UFO-y or UAP. They made them seem like they were controlled by non-human intelligence, or it comes from not from this world, that they're not ours. So now I'm not saying they are. I think it might be a mix, but let's go through these awesome news clips really quick so I can show you. This is some of the best stuff out there that most people missed, and I did not miss it. I'm hyper obsessed with UFOs, and I follow it every day, and I'm on this drone stuff so hard. I'm not buying the FAA. So here's the first one, clock malfunction. So a witness and their family reported a drone flying right over their car in New Jersey, and then their clock malfunctioned. If you're into UFOs more than 3 minutes, you realize that that's a classic scenario. UFO over a car, the car electronics go crazy, or the car shuts off. In this case, it was just the clock and electronics. Here's the clip from Fox News in early December.
One family claims they followed a drone in their car, and while it hovered above them, the clock in their car changed times. Then they say the clock went back to normal after they drove off.
Here's another great clip that happened roughly at the same time in December. This is also a clip from Fox News of Chuck DeVoy, I think is his name. He's an Arnold colonel who was recounting what happened to the FBI. Because at this point, the FBI had engaged in investigating what was going on with the drones. And apparently the FBI saw the drones, didn't know what they were, went home, and then those same drones followed them and hovered over their houses. That is so interesting because one, it's either like another program, like the FAA or the DOD being like, we know what you're doing, FBI, and leave us alone. We'll follow you home, so you stop that. Or it's what they call the hitchhiker effect. So if you're into this, you know what that means. If the 101 crowd, there's this amazing phenomenon that happens, could be good or bad. When you engage the phenomenon or you have up close contact, it follows you. And it follows you in unique ways, like in a paranormal way. You might still see UFOs, but people go home, they report orbs all over their house, they report shadow people, poltergeist activity. It's like classic haunting stuff. And it's been stated in the public and also studied as well. We know from the book Skinwalker from the Pentagon that whatever the people engaged on Skinwalker Ranch followed them wherever they went. People were seeing Dogman. They were seeing a giant upright, basically a werewolf, walking around suburbia, Virginia. This stuff is wild. They studied it. It was the same virulence as COVID. So if you got it, like 5 people got it too. And it spread out and got weaker. Super weird, right? So here's a clip from Fox News talking about the FBI being followed home.
Some of the FBI agents that have been assigned to look into this have reported drones flying over their homes as if to say, hey, we know where you are.
Okay, what about super advanced technology? It's already exhibiting that. We don't know where they're coming from. We don't know where they're going. But they also seem to have the ability to project something. So here's a clip of a gentleman who flew his drone up to meet one of these mystery drones, and this is what happened.
The other night, there was, right here over Picatinny, there was a drone just hanging out. I put my drone up in the air and went towards it. I had full battery life. Not 3 minutes into the flight, I lost control of the drone. Warning on my screen, lost control, and my drone started going down, dead battery.
All right, so they have the ability to somehow drain the battery of another drone or a man-made drone. That's super advanced at the very least. Not saying it's non-human intelligence doing it, but it's super advanced. So the FAA has the most advanced equipment and technology the world's ever seen and is just using it everywhere. It's just so wild. But here's where it gets even crazier because they have no heat signature. Not all of them, saying probably the true mystery ones don't have a heat signature. And don't trust me, trust the police who investigated it. Here's a clip of a reporter talking to a police officer who was flying their drones up to engage them, but they could never really catch them. And every time they got close, they shut their lights off, but they also reported they didn't have a heat signature. That is so important because the best videos of ufology, the ones that are vetted the most, are these FLIR footage. I don't know if they're classified or declassified footage that's come forward, like the gimbal footage, which is super famous, the Aquadia footage, the Tic Tac footage, the Go Fast footage. All of them do not have a heat signature. The UFO object in the frame is cold, which is super UFO-y. I don't know of a propulsion system that does that, so maybe you guys know. Like I just think that makes it super UFO-y. Here's the clip.
The department says these mystery drones evade detection because they don't give off heat like regular drones.
Why do you think that is? We don't know. It's just something that we haven't, it's not something that we've had our hands on. It's not something that we've experienced.
when we talk about UFOs, we try to classify them, we talk about observables. There's 5 observables that Lou Elizondo talks about, 5 unique things that UFOs do that would classify it as UFO or more interesting than just a light in the sky. MUFON actually has 7, but one of those observables is transmedium travel. What that means is these UFOs demonstrate the ability to go from water to air to space or vice versa. Transmedium. So here's a clip from mid-December where the Coast Guard reported 50 drones coming from the ocean. Now, they didn't say out of the water, they didn't witness it, but I'm not saying, I don't think this is proof that they came out of the water, but they may have came from the water, and if they did come from the water, that's super UFO-y. Maybe the FAA was just flying them over the water and chasing Coast Guard ships and then bringing them back to Jersey, which is so ridiculous. So wait, here's a clip that could suggest transmedium travel.
One of their officers called 911 after seeing 50 of them come off the ocean.
Advised after we made contact with that officer that there were 50 that came off the ocean.
50?
50. That was my reaction also. There were 50 that were coming off the ocean.
Now we're going to get in the deep end of the pool. Here is a clip from a New Jersey mayor talking about how an orb in Jersey, turned into a drone. What does that suggest? How weird is that? That suggests UFO mimicry, which I'm about to go deep in a second. But first I want to play this clip.
I mean, it's tough. Every time I see a video, my opinion seems to change. I mean, I've recently been watching and spent some time with the videographer out of Long Island. I mean, he has orbs, these glowing orbs of light on camera that as you watch them right before your eyes, they seem to transform into a mechanical drone. So I've actually watched it myself where these orbs are glowing balls of light, different blinking lights all over the place. And as it gets closer to you, you actually see it transform into a drone. Whether it's a drone from the beginning and it's being obstructed by bright light, I can't tell you, but it is cause for concern. We have looked at flight tracker data. We don't see any airplanes in the skies. These things are absolutely some kind of phenomenon that's happening just over our homes. We need answers and we need them quickly.
Yeah.
Now, just throw a little cold water on that. As an investigator, I've had cases where a plane's coming straight at someone and it looks like an orb because of front lights, and then it turns and then it looks like a different ship. And in the distance, optical illusion, you think like it was an orb turning into a plane. So that could be what the mayor was reporting, but I think he knows what he's talking about, and I think that comes up really quick if you get into this at all. So I have a feeling he wouldn't have shown that video or talked about it unless he was confident something more fishy was going on. But let's talk about mimicry. What is mimicry? I mean, the simplest example is just mimicking something else. So the UFOs are mimicking human aircraft. This happens in nature all the time. Animals mimicking nature or other animals. So mimicry is well studied in ufology, and there's all these different examples of UFOs changing into human vehicles in the sky and being very confusing, or vice versa. First, I want to read something from Dr. Eric Davis. He's an astrophysicist. He's famous for the Wilson Davis memo, which is big in ufology. It deserves its own whole podcast. I'm not going to break it down, but he has clearly worked on some of these programs that these legacy programs and these UFO programs the government's been hiding, and he can only say so much. So, but he's made a lot of statements. So what I'm about to read you is from, for some reason, it's randomly on UFOskeptic.org, and it's called. It has a title, The Inconsumability Problem and the Fermi Paradox. I think I butchered the first word. And when Davis says something, he's one of those people who can't say everything. But read deeper into it. If he's suggesting something, it might be truth, or he might have come across it, and that's why he's writing about it. So he's going to write about it like it's a theory, but he's been involved in these programs. So what is he really saying? So here we go. Let me read this to you. Quote, ETI probes visiting Earth would find it necessary to hide themselves from our detection mechanisms until they have assessed our technological level or potential threat and hazards. They would employ an adaptive multi-level risk program to avoid danger. Low observable stealth, such as simple camouflage through mimicry, which works well in nature, may be the technique of choice used by visiting ETI probes/UFOs already experienced in surveillance. Examples of mimicry techniques are ETI probes and UFOs entering the atmosphere with either the look or trajectory of a meteor or hidden within a meteor shower, behaving like dark meteors without the associated optical signature, hiding within an artificial or natural cloud, behaving as pseudo-stars sitting stationary over certain regions, or mimicking man-made aircraft's aggregate features, including, perhaps, the mysterious unmarked black helicopters. Why should a shape-shifting UFO not be able to mimic a contemporary aircraft? Another possibility is mimicry techniques employed for the manipulation of human consciousness to induce the various manifestations of absurd. The phenomenon is absurd. Interactions or scenery associated with the UFO encounter. This, in combination with the mimicry of man-made aircraft and helicopters, aggregate features, was prominent in the Cash Landrum UFO case. That's a really interesting case. I never looked at it through the lens of mimicry. It involved a mom and daughter, I believe, who got close to something that was clearly radioactive and gave them radioactive symptoms. It was like a malfunctioning UFO. It could have been ours that we were testing, and maybe that's not mimicry. Maybe it was just ours, or maybe it was some sort of mimicry because all these helicopters showed up at the same time. So I don't know if that's the best case to prove mimicry, but interesting that he said it. And if Eric Davis is saying it, then I'm going to pay attention. I particularly like the fact that he brought up consciousness, because what we capture on video is one thing, but if you don't capture on video, it seems like they have the ability to make you perceive them however they want. There'll be cases of someone seeing a UFO, or three people, and they all saw something different. One saw a plane, one saw a UFO, and one saw a different type of UFO. They're messing with our perception on some level. So what is actually happening? What was actually said outside of the FAA statement? What are some other theories that happened? So let's go back early. It's actually kind of fun. In November in UK, because it started in the UK, remember, this latest wave started in the UK, not New Jersey. There was a early clip where someone suggested that Russia hired Russian mobsters to fly drones over the bases. Here's the clip.
I think it's probably more likely to be Russia, but not, the Russian state itself. They've got this modus operandi of paying criminal gangs to carry out sort of disruptive activity in Europe.
I think that's an absurd explanation. So the Russian mobsters are flying drones across the entire world. Give me a break. Then a senator went on the air and caused some hysteria. By the way, hysteria is happening. People are reporting things that aren't there, but that's just one part of the wave, okay? Mass hysteria is a part of UFO waves. Doesn't mean the UFO wave is all mass hysteria. So early on in December, the senator talked about that these drones were coming from an Iranian mothership off the coast.
And from very high sources, very qualified sources, very responsible sources. I'm going to tell you the real deal. Iran launched a mothership probably about a month ago that contains these drones. That mothership is off, I'm going to tell you the deal. It's off the east coast of the United States of America. They've launched drones, is everything that we can see or hear. And again, these are from high sources. I don't say this lightly.
That is so outrageous. Our military is so amazing, and our Air Force and our Navy would know that was happening and shut that down so hard. Like, it's such an outrageous thing. And the Pentagon and DOD threw cold water on that so quick. The fact that that senator went on the air and said that was irresponsible, in my opinion. Moving on. Also, what about China? China came up a lot in different clips. I think the most interesting thing about China was the Cybertruck bomber, the guy who committed suicide in front of that building in a Cybertruck. He wrote a manifesto where he said these drones have anti-graphitic engines, which is a type of propulsion system that wouldn't have a heat signature. Really interesting. Or potentially wouldn't. Actually, I don't know that. But that's a term that's been thrown around about these propulsion systems for a long time in ufology. And he said they're coming from China.
The Green Beret who killed himself before the Tesla Cybertruck explosion. As part of his alleged manifesto, though, he claims that the drones spotted across the East Coast are coming from China. There's a big chance that these are, commentary from, we have to say this, a mentally ill person. But what can our lawmakers and, leaders alike do to stop conspiracy theorists and rumors online from swirling and spreading before they start?
Okay, very good point here. There's absolutely no evidence from any of my sources that these objects are coming from China. Everybody's telling me that there is no capacity by China to deliver car SUV-sized drones, so-called, over US airspace from supposed submarines off the coast. That's a technical ability that China just doesn't have. The allegations of Levelsberger, as you say, he was clearly a man operating under mental stress. He was suffering from PTSD and a marriage breakup. Everything he says should be taken with a considerable grain of salt. But is it possible that as somebody briefed into a national security secret, he was given an explanation for these supposed drones, i.e. China, which may in fact not be accurate? Is the government telling falsehoods to its own people to try and cover for something perhaps more anomalous and explanation. We just don't know.
So it's definitely not China, okay? Is it our tech? Well, that's what the White House says. They say it's the FAA. I don't really know. Dr. Greer provides some interesting insight on a podcast where he breaks it down as potentially this legacy program doing a false flag operation to whip up fear for nefarious reasons. It's something he's talked about for a long time, a false flag attack of some sort to get everyone scared, to spend a lot more money on the military. When Dr. Greer talks, I listen. So here's what Greer said on the New Jersey drones and what's actually happening.
These all began some months ago after a team of high-level black site defectors decided that they would come forward with all the evidence and information from 6 different black sites that have been involved in shooting down the ET craft, the reverse engineering of them, the ET bodies. Now, of course, the covert transnational corrupt organization running covert UFO UAP programs knows this. And they are now launching what we had predicted in the late 1990s, and that is a series of diversionary false flag events to confuse the public and the politicians and the Pentagon as to what these UAPs are. So that is what is happening. The drones are a predictable launch of a diversionary and a confusing event. So this is a PSYOP, psychological warfare operation. The actors who are keeping this secret will take the momentum of disclosure and try to turn it into an alien invasion scenario, a way to keep war running all over the world and also aggrandize the military-industrial complex with trillions of dollars in new spending to create a countermeasure to the alien threat.
And guess what, folks? It's still happening. It's going on today. Clips are still coming out. It's February. The phenomenon hasn't stopped. Maybe it receded a little bit, but it's still everywhere. The media stopped reporting it. People are just maybe used to it now. It's just kind of what's going on in the sky. Just drones flying over everywhere, flying over military bases, critical infrastructure, like all the time. Maybe the FAA is running a long-scaled, worldwide drone research program and flying over military bases and doing whatever they want. I just do not buy it. It's so crazy. If anything, that statement made the situation more muddy for me, but it's still happening. All right, folks, that's all I got. Thank you so much for being here tonight and listening. My name is Josh Golombeski, and this is Classified Reality.